the next day students can, everybody, because I know that everybody knows what the presentation is about, and so that they can, they could participate in the class activities a lot more actively. So that worked, but it's not like flipped classroom all the way, because I went over the presentation with the students, but in a way that was, yeah, that worked very well.
Yeah, I just found out I wasn't recording. I'm getting all this good stuff from you, and does it say we're being recording? Yeah, I am recording now. Well, what I'll do is probably have to go back and talk about the slides again, but I'm sorry I missed what you were just saying there.
That's okay.
Yeah, but it was valuable. So anyway, that's I think that's where I use Guthrie, just to convince teachers that you give a small presentation and then you watch the student apply it. And then when you send them home, at least you know they know how to tackle the problems. I remember when I was taking physics, we had the problem of acceleration due to gravity. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but I didn't understand the concept, and it really put a block on me. And I went to the physics teacher, and he couldn't solve the problem that he had given us. And then I went to my math teacher, and he couldn't solve the problem that they had given us. And there I was stuck. And after that, physics just went downhill for me. And then what I found out is where I really liked physics was when I read anything but the school textbook on physics. So I've been, you know, Guthrie gave me an answer to that problem. And when I read with DLI, when I saw how students get farther and farther behind and people expect them to do vocabulary and things in the barracks and at home with their families and so forth, I saw that that's why they were falling off, because you didn't have control of the study environment. Oh, let's see what we've got here. Well, we're going into cognitivism and the in the coming week. And what we see, what we see is that from observation, the cognitivists began to try and figure out how knowledge was acquired, and they began to develop all of these concepts like short-term and long-term memory, and the idea that you bring it in short-term, it only stays in there for a little bit, and then somehow you have to do something to get it in long-term. Well, I thought that was a decent concept, and I agreed, and that's the need for practice and spiraling and all that kind of stuff. But is it a matter of compartmentalization, or is this myelination that we talked about in the other brain, where they talk about people learning the piano and so forth, that every time you go through a pattern, that axon that's on the neuron gets more and more insulated. It stops information leakage, and the concept becomes more unconscious to you because it's now a habit. I think that's very interesting. Do we have compartments, or is it an integrated whole? And I think people are moving to think it's an integrated whole. The conscious versus the unconscious. I haven't had a chance to really go into that book called The User Illusion with all you people, but what they talk about is that the conscious mind is more or less a veto mechanism. It's also, it takes in new things and kind of makes an initial evaluation, but the processing capability of the conscious mind is much more limited. I think people think of this number 7 as plus or minus 3 chunks is what the mind generally can process, and that's why telephone numbers initially had no more than 7 digits, because that was what people could memorize and pretty much keep in their heads. Of course, that's been changed now, but that you have your conscious mind that has a limited processing capability, and your unconscious mind, which at least one of the references I had in my dissertation said the unconscious processes about 11 million bits of information a second versus 7 or 8 in your conscious mind. So when somebody says go with your gut or go with your emotions, you probably have more information and more connections in your unconscious than you do in your conscious. And when you think about it, the unconscious is integrating all 5 senses at different rates of speed, all meeting in your brain at the same time. And it's a very interesting concept that says that we're really a half a second behind the reality that's out there. We're experiencing a half a second later than it's really happening. And that's hard for me to keep in my head. But maybe that justifies constructivism and the statement that we never really know reality, because we're going to be processing that all, if it's around a half a second, but it's going to be plus or minus something, because some people are slower than others. And maybe that's why it takes an older person longer to grasp something than a younger person, because the pathways are all clogged up. Patterns, chunks, automaticity. The idea is Churchland talks about the cortex, the neocortex, which really didn't start getting developed until about 50,000 years ago. When the Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa and started mixing, they entered Europe where the Neanderthals had already been for 250,000 years. What distinguished the Homo sapiens from the Neanderthal was the development of the neocortex. And what the neocortex does, it takes a stimuli and compares it to stimuli it's experienced in the past. And if there's similarity, it kind of cements that type of response to what you're seeing. So it's patterns. And then the idea with chunks is the more you've experienced something, the bigger the chunk is, and the more processing can take place automatically without you thinking about it or calling a conscious mind into the business. And I always go back to the golf swing. If you try to think of all the elements of a golf swing when you're executing it, you just can't do it. So you have to practice bit by bit by bit and make it an integrated whole. And there's a whole lot of processes that are like that. Interesting in dual coding, verbal and nonverbal behavior, that concepts such as success are stored verbally, and that the other things that people see that are objects and so forth are stored non-verbally. And, that's always interesting to me about language. And that's what practice kind of does. When you're sitting there and you're looking at, let's take a musical instrument, and it says, put your first finger down on this key and you'll get this note. All of that is verbal. And then what you have to do is translate that. If you're reading it out of a book, you have to translate that into a visual to do it. And now, and that's what books did. Books taught us how to take text and enter in our minds. And then by study and work, we turned that into an actual object. Trying to read how to tune up a car versus actually doing it is it's an exercise. But now with real cheap ways of making visuals, with cameras, digital cameras and so forth, we don't have to go to books as a source of information. We can show the process. And the person then learns the way that Bandura says we learn, and that is by modeling and imitation. And we don't have to make that translation from a text icon in our head to an actual process. So I think what that means is a lot more people can enter into the community of learners, because those who never learned to read and therefore can't read to learn, that's the distinguishing point between success and failure in our system. It's the ones who got the good grades, and that usually happened through reading. The ones that couldn't read well kind of dropped out and became the trade people and so forth. So I'm interested in that dual coding thing and eliminating text wherever we can as that initial entry into a concept. Schemas. These are automatic processes that you start not knowing something, and then by practice and use and spiraling and all these different techniques, you develop an automatic response, even at the conceptual level. Even on the far ends of the Bloom taxonomy, that if you practice using the abstract and you practice expressing complex concepts, you'll be able to do it. Tacit and explicit knowledge, very interesting concepts, and metacognition, thinking about thinking. These are interesting concepts. Again, talking about the mental ability to envision reward or consequences. And then I come up with the neutrality of homeostasis. You know, what's punishment and a penalty to the administrator of punishment or penalties may be reinforcing to that person, but it may mean nothing to the person it's being used on. That person has engaged in avoidance behavior for a reason, or that person has latched onto something for a reason. And when I'm just thinking about that, I'm thinking that all these threats, or the implied threats and the actual threats, are really something that the teacher uses or a boss uses and gets reward and reinforcement from, but they have absolutely no effect on the person that's being used on, except to cause them to think of other ways to engage in avoidance behavior. I don't know. Piaget, somebody's going to have to tell me about his value. I look at it, and the guy wasn't really looking at methodologies. He was looking at how people acquired knowledge, and he really wrote nothing on the adult learner. But he certainly is influential, and I think he is really considered one of the beginners of constructivism because of his advocacy that children should do hands-on things and discover on their own and so forth. These concepts of disequilibrium, assimilation, and accommodation, I think they're pretty useful. Let me put another C in accommodation. Get that red line out of there. And I don't know what's the matter with the Dressel? Did I spell that wrong? No. We'll just ignore that one. But at any rate, I think Piaget is somebody to know about. Maybe all of you can tell me what you gain from that person. This Vygotsky is so important in a collaborative environments, where we finally see that yes, the individual needs to learn and needs to gain skills, but that person can also be helped by having to display knowledge and contribute to knowledge. And that's kind of what I think you see in our courses here in the MIST program. I mean, we give you stuff to read, that's the presentation. We let you write in the forums, that's practice and production and posting. And then you comment on each other's work. And so that's collaboration and a kind of a soft accountability. So I see us working in our courses from Skinner through Vygotsky. And I think you see that every week. I hope you do anyway. The need for an adult mentor, that was interesting that Vygotsky said that, but I really think that we all need mentors. And if you believe in the zone of proximal development, we're all going to come with different levels of readiness to take on things. And we do learn from each other by seeing how each other handles the same problems that we're having difficulty with. Collaboration is motivational. I mean, the fact that I know that you two are going to be on my virtual office hours means that I've got to prepare virtual office hours. So it is motivational, and it is a means of accountability. We did, when I was at DLI, we did have this issue of getting teachers to accept technology. Teachers teach the way they're taught, especially if they don't have time to learn the new things. And so what we did is we picked persons who've adopted technology and paired them with people who hadn't at the time. And then we watched this group, and we did it virtually online. We watched both sides grow as advocates of technology, and I think we've left, in fact, I had a student in the last capstone and the last class that I taught that was a member of that particular project, and now she's doing all kind of technology things dealing with Arabic. So at any rate, I think there's a lot to learn from Vygotsky. So overall, your analyses are just great. I'm learning so much from you guys, and you're taking on the material and you're coming up with your conclusions and giving me and each other, I think, a lot to think about. I do appreciate those who disagree, because it gives a different look, and it takes some courage to do that. And nobody gets graded down for having a different opinion. I'm going to try to catch up on individual feedback over the weekend. I really like dealing with your comments individually. Next week, we'll look at Bandura. Your research article will be due on February 7th. We're going to have a degree of group work where we're going to use the rubric to analyze them. We'll take the groups and divide them into the behaviorists, the cognitivists, the connectionists, and the social people. There's about 4 types of learning going on, and we'll see if we can learn from each other, and you'll develop a 1 to 2 page job aid on each of the theories, so that, and present it to the rest of your class, so that we can learn from it. And finally, the week 8 will give you time to do your paper, and I'll have discussions about gender and cultures and how these different societies and voices look at learning, just to wrap up the course. Do you have any questions on your research article? Are you able to use that template that I gave you in the front of the course?
Actually, I do have a question. I have a question about for the rest of the term. So we've been doing discussion forum every week, but as you said here, we're going to have to do our research article analysis, so which is to week 6. So do we have a discussion forum as well in the week?
No, I may add one, because it's, just to get your comments. But actually, I want you to be focusing on your research article. Okay.
So we're not going to have discussion forums week 6, 7, and 8.
I don't think so. Maybe Bandura, I'll stick another one in there. But basically, I really do want you to concentrate on your research article and your final paper. And then I will stick a group project in there, so you'll have some work where you guys will have to organize among your groups, Zoom meetings, and use your Google Docs and do kind of wiki things, and that will replace the forum.
Okay. So as for the group work, so you're going to announce about it the week before. So
I'm going to design the Bandura course this weekend, and I've done some work myself on how to do the group work. So I will announce that and show you what I expect. But the output of that will be a 1 to 2 page job aid where this is the theory, these are the advocates, this is what it covers in the 5 Ps, and this is what it doesn't, and then you'll have an evaluation. And you guys will put that together, and everybody in the group will get the same grade that's given to the job aid.
Okay. So are we going to have more than a week for the group project? Because usually the students here are very busy, and then it's hard to find the time that we can get together and have an online meeting. So it would be better if we can.
That's one of the challenges of group work and online collaboration, and I want to give you some material on online collaboration. That's some of the newer theories that you need to know about, getting us getting us into how we work in groups in virtual environments. And one of the big challenges will be finding common times to meet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a question. Will we have any exams or tests?
No.
Okay.
No. I like to give you a chance. I like constructed responses. They're not right or wrong answers, but the opportunity to write and put your thoughts on paper. That's the way I think is the best assessment. The only problem is it puts a little bit of a load on the person who has to read all that stuff.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, we're not going to have any tests. The big deal is writing and expressing yourself and putting your thoughts on paper, and then getting a jump on your capstone project. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. A lot of people said, how do I get practice in the capstone project? Well, what I saw in several capstone projects is people had no application activity at all. And so that's what I'm saying is you need to put some kind of evaluation activity in there for the person to see that they have grasped the concept and that they're growing. Then you basically model it, and then you can also, as part of your instructional design document, you can place the capstone activity as part of an overall context, and say, this is a tutorial to get them started. Here would be the other activities that I would have to do the learning, and then the 1 hour would be one very small element of what you're trying to do in terms of overall learning. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I just find myself working really hard, even without the test. I think this, like reading and writing this on the discussion forum, just makes us work really hard. I find other students work very hard too. I can tell from their writing. Yeah, so this really works.
Yeah, well, I hope it's not excessive. We used to have, last year we had journals too. So every time you had a forum, you had a journal entry you did. And I just cut it out so that you could focus on the forums. And what I see is really high quality, top quality work. I just hope it isn't too much for you, and focus on the questions that I'd ask you to address on the forums. Unless you want to, don't get bogged down in the reading, because a lot of that is like Susie was talking about. How do you keep all these concepts in your head? And Gridler really throws a lot of stuff at you. And so you need to figure, okay, I'll be patient. I'll get back to this, and then answer the questions in the forum, and budget your time, because I know that other class is taking a degree of it too. What other class are you taking right now? Beams?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for your attention. I'll put out 2 videos tonight. One will be the last half of this one, and then I'll re-record the front half.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care of yourselves.
Okay.
See you next time.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.